encouragement to others as well. So I'm going to, in this coming week, we are set to study lesson 18, which deals with doing business honestly. And then in lesson 19, we're going to talk about good reputation. And so today I'd like to kind of pave the way for both of these lessons because they're connected. So let's turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 1. And today I would like to talk about how to achieve a good reputation. How many of us want a good reputation? Any of us want a good reputation? Okay, the rest of you want a pretty bad reputation, or either that or you already have it. I'm not sure. But I think all of us have a good reputation. While you find that, I want to remind all those young people or adults who are graduating this year, we are going to start sign-ups for the graduation celebration. So Henry and Karen are here. Can you wave your hands? So approach them. Also, Wendy Lobos, wave your hand, Wendy. Okay, so approach Wendy. Who else why don't we have all the youth quickly, the youth team, the youth leadership team, please stand up quickly. I just want everyone to know who to approach. Okay, so approach these beautiful people. Okay, everyone who is there, approach them, please, and sign up. Give them your names if you are graduating this year, please, because we're going to have a great celebration. In this congregation, we value education. And so please, 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 please sign up because there is a celebration this year. Again, I think at the beginning of June, if I'm not mistaken. So, all right. Chapter 7, Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 1 says, a good name is better than precious ointments, and the day of death than the day of birth. It goes on through verse 6, in fact, and kind of paralleling death and the benefits, really, the death kind of brings about, because the fact is that the day that we die is when we kind of bring, we bring our lives to a conclusion, right? And the opinion that people have on the day of our death is really the opinion that we have constructed in their presence, if you will. And so that's what we're going to deal with in these lessons here. Okay, so just give me a second here because I'm having again some technical issues here. I don't know what's going on. There we go. All right. So reputation is what comes to the minds of everyone who mention our name. And that includes the people that we do business with, right? And reputation is what comes to the minds of those who will attend one day, our funeral. They'll think, they'll think of us what we have meant for them. A name brings either shame or honor, criticism, admiration, dignity, or disgrace. When your name is mentioned to others, question, do they associate your name with honor and dignity or bad reputation? When they mention your name, what do they think about? And so let's see here six principles or 6 virtues as to how to achieve a good reputation, First of all, we achieve good reputation through selfless actions. Can you say with me, selfless actions? Yeah. In 1 Corinthians chapter 13, it's the chapter of love, but in verses 4 through 7, Paul tells us that being impatient that is, rude and envious are signs of selfishness because they put us first. Paul goes on to say that selflessness is being patient, kind toward others. It is not self-serving. It's not envious of what others have. And the fact is that given the opportunity, a selfless person chooses not to be rude to other people. We choose not to be rude, not to be impatient, if you will. What we do, every action that we perform, whatever we do tells people what we are inside. Now we can say, all of us have sort of an aspirational own reputation. If someone asks us, who are you? And we normally give a very, aspirational, reputation of ourselves. But the fact is that's not what we are. What we aspire to be is different than what we are. And our actions sort of show what we are inside. Jesus in Matthew 12, verse 35 says, the good person out of his good treasure brings forth good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure brings forth evil. In other words, what you are is what you are. You cannot change it with the snap of your finger. What you are today is what you have accumulated all of your life until now. All of us are what we are precisely because we've made decisions. We've acted a certain way upon what we think. And so I would say to parents, particularly those who have children, pay attention. Pay attention to the conduct of your children because from early on, they'll show, what they will become. What their pitfalls are, what their tendencies are. Parents are, obligated to look at a child, every single child. And those of you who have more than one child know how different they are, right? You have two girls, one is more girly and the other one's a little more tomboyish, right? Have two boys, one is more introverted perhaps, the other is more extroverted, right? One seems to be kinder. It's not that the other is not kinder. It's just maybe the other was more intuitive. I don't know. But we need to look at our children and watch how they behave because that's going to tell us the areas in which we have to work on. Proverbs 20 verse 11 says, even a child makes himself known by his acts. In other words, even a child shows his own character. How much more an adult, right? But it goes on to say, by whether his conduct is pure or upright. You don't have to ask your child if he lied or she lied. All you have to do is look at what he or she did, right? Actions is what shows who we are or what we are doing at that point. We can defend ourselves. We can say whatever. We can become politicians and represent ourselves in a certain way. But the fact is it is our actions that tell others what we are inside. What is it about selfless actions that breeds followers as we become older? Have you noticed that? Or at least that's the idea of life, that as we get older, we attract more people. Some people have a tendency to repel people. And one of the reasons people tend to repel others is because they are selfish. They think only of themselves. See? We should never use others for personal gain. In fact, Jesus' disciples were willing to sacrifice greatly to do the hard work because they knew that Jesus wasn't taking advantage of them. Every single act of Jesus, every single word that you read in the Gospels was motivated for their benefit, for the glory of God, for the advances of the kingdom. Jesus at no point brought glory to him. And if someone had the right to do that, was him, but he didn't. So the apostles were able to sacrifice greatly because they knew that Jesus was not there to take advantage of them. When a parent sacrifices personal gain to lead his children or her children, it encourages the spouse and the children to come alongside. A father who is genuine, who is, who acts selflessly, constantly looking out for the family, protecting them, providing for them, will have a family, a faithful family. They'll come alongside. He will become more believable precisely because he is selfless in his actions. The same thing of a mother. A mother who wakes up at 3 a.m. when that child is crying, or when that baby is, it has fever, there's the mother, nourishing that baby. There is a certain attachment between that child and the mother precisely because she has this, this intuition, maternal intuition. to be selfless in her actions towards that child. When a ministry leader sacrifices his time and resources to advance the kingdom of God, others will follow him. Others will follow to do the same thing as he does. Today, my mom has become a legend. And she has become a legend, at least in my heart, because she was really selfless. The more I think and the older I get, the more I admire my mother, honestly. And the more she sort of becomes this legend on which I tell stories. Now I'm remembering stories. Now I'm remembering words, but not just words, but her actions. Selflessly, always acting, looking out for us, finding ways to benefit us. So we achieve good reputation through selfless actions, but also by practicing honesty. Can you say with me, honesty? Yeah. Leaders want to be honest, but great leaders are honest. All of us want to be honest. But what separates people, good people with good reputation and people with bad reputation is their honesty. It's practicing honesty. Why do people lie? Why do people lie? Because they are afraid that others will know the truth. Mainly, that's as simple as that. But they also assume that it will destroy the trust of those who follow them. One of the greatest, I think, deceptions among leaders, politicians, even Christians, is that if they confess their sins, if they let others know that they're struggling in an area, they think that they'll become less in the sight of other people. And quite frankly, the opposite happens. When you approach someone confessionally and say, I'm struggling in this area, what's going to happen is that your friends are going to support you, at least for the most part, unless you go to your enemy or you go to the wrong person. What has more repercussions than telling the truth? Getting caught in a lie. That's what's even worse. It is much easier to forgive the person who tells the truth than the one who's caught in a lie. Have you noticed that? Right? When someone approaches you and says, hey, I'm terribly sorry about what I said about you. Please forgive me. That was terrible. It was very unbecoming of me. It's easier to forgive that person than the one that you have to confront and say, hey, you lied about me. Right? It's harder to forgive someone who's caught in a lie. It's harder to forgive, a spouse, a cheating spouse, being caught in the act or being caught and found out. It's harder. It's harder to forgive a worker when he's caught than a worker who comes and tells the boss, even though he might be let go of. But it's better to tell the truth always because it builds reputation. The fact is that we all have the tendency to cover lies. The tendency is to cover how bad we are. Seriously. Now, not that wrinkles are bad. They're normal. But all of us, I think, at some point, I'm almost 54, and I'm noticing my wrinkles. Now I'm noticing. I never did. I'm like, when I wake up, I'm like, man, where has my flesh gone? Right? And girls are probably, have a harder time, or ladies after once you start getting wrinkles. But the fact is, we want to. If there was a way to hide them, right? We all want to hide our wrinkles, all of us. If it's not with makeup, it is with surgery, right? We all want to somehow cover those things that we don't like about us. And that's the same way with lies. We have the tendency to cover a lie with another lie, and eventually all of it crumbles down. Dishonesty eventually reveals the real you, the real us, the real me. Acts 5, 1 through 11, you can read it later, tells a story about Ananias and Sapphira. They were this couple that sold this lands, right? And they brought a large portion of the proceeds to the disciples. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was that they lied to Peter. They said, this is all the money that we got out of the land. Had they come and said, hey, we sold this piece of land and we brought 50 for the congregation, 50 of it, that would have been great. Everyone would have been very happy, right? And perhaps today, Sapphira and Ananias and Sapphira would be maybe great evangelists. I don't know. But what happened to them? They died right there because they lied. Not just to Peter. Peter tells them, you lied to the Holy Spirit. And the question is, why did they lie? Why did they die? Why? Why isn't that happening today? Well, that happened for our warning. They died because God wants to show us how much He hates dishonesty. See? God hates dishonesty. Dishonesty for what it does to the person, but also for what it does to other people. Your reputation says what kind of leader you are, what kind of person you are, what kind of father, mother, what kind of leader, what kind of worker you are. If you are late or don't show up for a meeting and lie about it, you're shaping your own reputation. A few days ago, my wife and I went to a class, and the instructor came late, and she was saying, oh, I'm sorry, I went to the wrong place. But it was like she was lying. We could tell she was lying. Like she couldn't even lie. And my wife and I just looked at each other like, I don't know, like we knew. We were saying to each other without saying anything, I don't believe that girl. She is lying through her teeth, right? But every time we lie, we are building our reputation. Do you want to be known as the liar brother? The lying sister? Is that what we want to be known? My father was good, but boy, he was a liar. My brother, he's a good guy, good hard worker, but man, don't believe him a word. He's a liar. Is that what is that? But precisely that's what we're doing when we're dishonest. Your parenting also says what kind of leader you are. If you promise your children that you're going to take them somewhere, but you don't, you're shaping your own reputation. Honesty sets a person apart and gives him a good name when a person is honest. Thank you for the invitation, but you know what? I can't come. Instead of the typical Latino response, let me, yeah, sure, thank you. And then you don't show up. You already know you're not showing up. Why don't you say, I won't come? Huh? You know what? Don't order that extra tamale. I won't come. Thank you for inviting. I feel so grateful that you invited me, but you know what? I can't, or I won't come, or I can't come. Say the truth. Be honest. Live with the truth. And then you'll build a good reputation. The next time they won't invite you to that birthday, but they'll say, man, that person is honest. Right? When you're honest and live transparently before those who follow you, you're able to see, others will be able to see who we are. And not only that, but they will also follow us and will make solid decisions precisely because we've been honest with them. So we achieve good reputation through selfless actions and honesty, but also by practicing integrity. In his book, Up From Slavery, Booker T. Washington describes meeting an ex-slave from Virginia. He writes the following. He says, I found that this man had made a contract with his master 2 or 3 years previous to the Emancipation Proclamation, to the effect that the slave was to be permitted to buy himself by paying so much per year for his body. And while he was paying for himself, he was to be permitted to labor where and for whom he pleased. Later he goes on to say, finding that he could secure better wages in Ohio, he went there. So he moved to Ohio from Virginia. when freedom came, which was in 1863, right? So this contract must have been done in 1860. 3 years later, approximately, when emancipation came in 1963, he was still in debt to his master for about $300. Now pay attention to this. Notwithstanding that the Emancipation Proclamation freed him from any obligation to his master, because the Emancipation clearly said that any slave had to be let go of, and any debts that the slave had was to be wiped out immediately. That was part of the emancipation, right? So he says, notwithstanding that the Emancipation Proclamation freed him from any obligation to his master. This black man walked the greater portion of the distance back to where his old master lived in Virginia and placed the last dollar with interest in his hands. In talking to me about this, the man told me that he knew that he did not have to pay his debt. Now, this black man knew that he didn't have to pay that debt. That legally he was forgiven, right? But that he had given his word to his master, and his word he had never broken. Can you believe that? He felt that he could not enjoy his freedom until he fulfilled his promise. How many of us would do that? How many of us go to the supermarket, we count the money, we know we have $10 more, and we say, praise God, the Lord blessed me with $10, instead of turning back and go and return that $10 bill? How many people have found a wallet with an ID? I'm not talking about just those $200 that you found on the streets. No, people have found wallets. In fact, I can tell you a story. I lost my wallet some years ago. I had left there maybe, $60, which was a big amount back then when we didn't have a lot. And in the mail came my wallet without the $60, but at least he sends me my ID, which was far more important, right? But how many of us are tempted, right? Why? Because we're every single time that we don't do the right thing, that shows us how bad we are and how we need Christ to correct that. The root of integrity, the word root for integrity means whole or undivided. Integrity is an undivided life. Integrity is adherence to a code of values. It's not an action like selflessness and honesty, but it motivates my actions. Integrity motivates how we act. It's not an action, but it's a motivation. Integrity speaks of a person's inner world of values, while selflessness and honesty speak of a person's outer values. Proverbs 11:3 says, integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. A person who walks in integrity will not stumble because his steps are led properly. Simple as that. Every single action, every single temptation that comes, when a person has integrity, the person knows what's right. The crooked person is a blight that forces his family to live under a bad reputation. There's nothing so bad as to have a father who's lying, who has a bad reputation. All that family is obligated, is enslaved to live under that bad reputation. Right? The word integrity is used in regards to physical structures as well. A wall or a building that is strong and has no cracks, it is said to have integrity, right? Well, the same thing is for our character. How is our character? Does it have any cracks? A husband should not act one way when the wife is present and another way when she's absent. A wife should not say one thing when the husband is there and then say the opposite when he's absent. See? Integrity means that we're going to have the same story. that what we talk in private is what we say in public. Now, I'm not suggesting that everything you say in private, you say it in public. I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting that church becomes a Jerry Springer kind of a show. No. There are some things in private that stay in the privacy of the home. But what I'm saying that in principally, whatever we say of a person in private is what we need to say in public. And that's one thing that, that we have tried to work on. Sometimes I confess, I've sort of caught myself just saying some, maybe I'm irritated at someone. I tell my wife, and she says, well, is that what you believe of that person in public? And no. And then she says, well, then you need to change your mind. You change the way you look at that person. Like, she caught me again, right? But whatever we say about someone in private is what we say in public. And whatever we say about someone in public is the version that we need to have in private as well. We achieve good reputation through selfless actions, honesty, integrity, but also by practicing faithfulness. Can you say with me, faithfulness? And I'm going to end here. People of good reputation are faithful. They finish whatever they start. They come to church at 10 o'clock when the service starts, not at 10:30. Not at 10:15. They're sharp. They know. And they know they're going to take maybe 15 minutes to get a parking spot, so they come 20 minutes earlier, so they're here on time. They're faithful to the Lord. Now, pastor's rebuking some of you so you can get your act together, but that's the truth. We start at 10 o'clock. But some of you have pretty bad reputations already. You customarily come late. A person with a good reputation doesn't abandon his family either, or his brothers in the Lord. A faithful person understands that every problem is temporary, that at some point the Lord will give him the victory. Anyone can be faithful in good times too. But faithfulness is proven in bad times, because that's where reputation is built. In trials and tribulations. In leadership, in fact, believers want to follow somebody who will stretch them beyond what they are, wherever they are right now, but who will also allow them to try and fail. When you're faithful to your ministry team, they will be faithful to the Lord and to you as well. They will represent you correctly. Faithfulness strengthens the bond between God and the leader, and between the leader and his team. I'm going to have to end there. There's a little more, but I'm going to have to end there because it's time. But I think this is very challenging, isn't it? And I hope that you can attend a community group, because we're going to deal with this. We're going to dissect these things a little more. And I hope that we can attend and really ask ourselves, are we really on the right path? Are we really being right with the Lord? Can you stand, please? We receive an offering every time we have communion, so I'm gonna pray, and then what I'm gonna ask is that you give your offering, put the offering in the basket, and you can leave after this. So let me pray both for the offering but also for dismissal, okay? So Lord, thank you so much.